All right, guys, we're live. We're just testing our audio and video quality real quick. We just want to make sure that you guys can hear us and see us perfectly. Go ahead and put in the comments if everything looks good. We're testing out some new software here that we'll be using for our future live streams. So let us know in the
Looks
comments
good.
afterwards if it looks good. Looks like our quality looks good so far. So
Oh, there's a. I see what's going on.
yeah, awesome. I think we're good. Yeah, our quality looks good. So we're gonna get started in just a few minutes, guys. Thanks for hanging in there. We're gonna hang out until noon because that's when we're scheduled to start, and we'll get started. So we'll go back to our hold screen, and soon we'll have hold music. But thanks, guys, for verifying that everything looks good. We'll be back in a second. All right, we're
Hey,
live,
Dan.
guys.
Sorry. Go ahead, Simon.
Oh, go ahead. Uh,
All right.
we'll
All right,
have
guys.
John introduce
Welcome.
each other real quick.
Oh, my goodness. Here we go. Welcome to our first live stream, what we're going to call Lunch and Learn on Tuesdays at noon with myself, John Gross, here at HSC, and Simon. So, if you don't know, Simon is the guy that on a daily basis, I constantly bug him. I'm just kidding. We don't bug each other here at HSC, but constantly I'm always going to Simon. So, I started with HSC back June this past year. I knew absolutely nothing about drone technology. So coming on board was just uh, probably exactly the way everybody feels when they call in for the first time. So I have these conversations daily, weekly. Came to my team. I was like, hey guys, we're already doing some demos on YouTube. I would love to offer basically like a weekly lunch and learn, like we're doing, an area for you to come in, give us some questions in the chat. So please do that. I'm going to introduce Simon here in a moment. And what we're going to do today is we're going to kind of go back and look at spraying technology, kind of the history of that, and where drones come in, and then where HSE comes in and how we can help you with drones in general. But today we're going to talk about crop spraying drones mostly. So please, Simon, take it from here. And I want to ask you some questions as we go through this, like where drones came into it all, how long spraying's been around, how long you've been with HSE. So please, with no further ado, help us out, please.
Thank you, John, for introducing HSC and myself. Again, my name is Simon Aslan. I've actually been with HSC geez, coming up on over 3 years now. And it's been an incredible learning experience with me coming from an existing drone background, but not a agricultural spraying drone background. So it's been very, very interesting for me to learn the ins and outs of this specific industry. Um, I'll just want to go ahead and mention HSC started in 2009, and we did not start as a spraying uh, uh, drone manufacturer. It started as Homeland Surveillance and Electronics, focusing on surveillance drones and first responders. But we saw the need for spraying drones. We saw how effective and useful they can be. And it just made sense for us to pursue introducing a spraying drone to the market. We were one of the first companies in the US to have spraying drones available. Since then, it's essentially become our bread and butter. The spraying drones are a huge part of our company, and we have made it our goal not just to sell spraying drones, but to educate customers and teach customers the ins and outs of spraying drones. It's been a long learning experience for us, and
Mm-hmm.
we want to do everything we can to pass that on to our customer. Something that I know we've said a few times in the past is um, when you're working with us, you're not just purchasing a drone from us. You're purchasing our and working with our knowledge, not just buying a drone. So
Yeah.
it's really important to our customers, and that really rely on our system to work for them. So
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
and learn everything about them. Yeah.
So, yeah, we were having a conversation a little bit earlier today, preparing for this, and we were talking about how long aerial spraying's been around, and it's over a century, right?
Yeah, it's so interesting. So actually, just if I'm not mistaken, just a couple weeks ago was marked, I believe, the 100th anniversary of crop dusting, which is
Wow.
just incredible, right? So from a little bit of research I did, it looks like the first crop dusting was done under the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which is amazing because we work with them today.
Yeah.
I believe that was in 1921, so 99 years
Yeah.
of
August 3rd, I think we saw, right?
That's right. August 3rd, 1921,
Mm-hmm.
it looks like marked the first known aerial application um, under joint efforts of the U.S. Department of Ag and the U.S. Army. So that's pretty incredible that over 100
Yeah.
years of aerial agriculture. I mean, when you
Mm-hmm.
think about how new flying was in 1921. It'd only been around for a few years, probably less time than drones
That
have
is
been around
interesting
today. It's kind of
to
incredible
think
to think
about that.
about.
Yeah,
And I
definitely. I
think
didn't
now,
even think about what the airplane actually looked like back then.
yeah, I let's just say I couldn't find a picture of it.
Oh man. Wow. So, but then fast forward not even 100 years though, because then we're finding out actually the first spraying from drones was like in the 90s or something. So it wasn't even 100 years later before they got it to an actual
Right.
unmanned aircraft.
That's right. So unmanned aviation and spraying started in the early 90s with Yamaha. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of you guys listening in may have heard of the Yamaha RMAX, which was one of the very, very first unmanned aerial sprayers, which you can go back and see some videos and pictures of the RMAX. It's pretty incredible to see because what it really is just a remote control helicopter, an oversized remote control
Hmm.
helicopter. The early models had no autonomous capabilities at all. It
So you had to
relied
fly that manually
completely
as,
manually.
I mean,
That's pretty
like
scary.
something
Like
like
that.
probably like this too, right?
That's
And
right. That's right.
that's insane. And literally, we just press buttons on a computer now.
Right. And to see where we've come, I mean, 20 years later is unbelievable. The technology has progressed so much. So let's talk a little bit about the general design of
Yeah.
the
I mean, we've
platform we're
got one up
carrying.
there on the screen behind.
That's right.
So you
So
can point out some of the newer technology versus like some of the old stuff that you've seen because we've been selling crop spraying drones for nearly a decade here in the US, right?
that's right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. And again, guys, this is learning for me as much as it is for you, since I'm still relatively new with HSE. I don't claim to be an expert whatsoever. I feel like Simon's my expert. He's at that legendary level. I feel like I'm way down here at like the rare level of, if you were to put me on a scale of what I know. So thank you, Simon. But again, yeah, let's go back to that. So point out some of the older pieces versus the newer pieces and where we are today.
Yeah, so I think the biggest difference that will be clear to anybody is the difference between a traditional helicopter style aircraft and what we would call in the industry a multi-rotor system. So obviously it looks very different, but it goes much deeper than that. The biggest thing is a helicopter typically only has a single rotor and a tail rotor for stability, whereas a multi-rotor has, obviously, as the name implies, multiple rotors and no tail rotors. But I think the key difference here is the mechanical complexity. A traditional helicopter is actually very complex mechanically, which means there's a lot of moving parts to the equation to make it operate. This goes for any helicopter that you see, whether it's manned or unmanned, that has a traditional style layout. So the way a traditional helicopter operates is, let's say you have a two-bladed helicopter. It could have multiple blades, but the concepts are the same. Each blade has adjustable collective. That means the blade itself can actually twist like this to change the pitch and angle of the blades. And that allows the helicopter to be able to climb, fly forward, backwards, left, and right, etc. But there's a lot of mechanical movements and complexity to go along with that. In addition, you also have a tail rotor that has the same type of pitch collective adjustment that also requires that type of control. So you have controls over the collective on the what we call the collective on the main rotor, tail rotor, and you have to link the power from the main rotor to the tail rotor. So there's a complex gearing, and whether it's a belt or a shaft-driven system. As you can see, there's a lot of complexity. And this is the main reason why helicopters are so expensive. They require an incredible amount of maintenance to keep in the air. So a real helicopter requires very strict time between intervals to keep it flying. Now, let's move over to more modern multi-rotor.
I'll just add to that real quick. I had a friend who was a pilot, and he used to tell me, he's like, I will never get in a helicopter because it's just a bunch of parts moving this way and that way. There's so many different things that can go wrong. He's like, I would much rather be in an airplane with wings and glide.
That's true.
But it's just funny because,
but the same concept goes, directly into our unmanned aviation. So now we're into multi-rotors. Multi-rotors, the beauty of multi-rotors and why they work so well is they're incredibly simple mechanically. So on our multi-rotors, let's take our Ag 110 that you see in the background here. That model only has 6 moving parts, essentially. It has 6 rotors that move. And the way that the aircraft is controlled is by varying the speed of each motor. So rather than twisting blades and compensating for torque with the tail rotor, you have 6 opposite rotation propellers. Each rotor is controlled by a motor controller. So the only moving part are the bearings in the motor itself. So mechanically, it's way, way simpler. It requires a lot less maintenance. It requires a lot less work. Where the magic comes into play and why we're able to do this now is the technology inside the flight controllers. The flight controller is what makes the drone fly. So it's making changes continuously, thousands of times a second to keep the drone stable. And the electronics are a lot more reliable than mechanical components that you have to, maintain constantly. So the reliability has gone up immensely, and the cost has gone down dramatically as well. Now,
you mentioned something about pitch, and that is very true. Like a helicopter, and some of our viewers may or may not know this, but the main blade, the way a helicopter goes up and down isn't so much the RPMs, because usually RPM stays the same. and it's the pitch that turns, and that creates the thrust for the helicopter to take off and increase. But like you said, that's extra moving parts. And in a drone, our props, propellers, whatever you want to call them, they're stagnant, right? They're not going to twist. And so it's the
fixed
software controlling the speed of those rotors, and that's why they can fly so much more efficiently
that's right.
than
So
a multi-rotor helicopter.
Bottom line is we're varying the rate of the motors versus the pitch of the blade.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very different approach to making something fly, right? And with the technology improving so much, with the types of sensors that we have, they've gotten incredibly reliable, and the cost has come down a lot, which makes drones, now a household thing. You can buy drones at Walmart. Now, it's not going to be a spraying drone. This is a very different application. So let's bring it.
Probably won't get the FAA regulation help either. But
no.
So you mentioned 6 moving parts, the rotors, right? Here's a question I get all the time. I don't see any questions popping up in the chat yet, but being on the front lines for HSE, I get this question a lot. How long does the rotor last? When should I switch it out? And
so that's a really good
answer
question.
You always give me is,
frankly, the rotors, most of the components on our aircraft are replaced as needed items.
As needed, yep.
Now, there are some things on the rotors that can require replacement. So, for example, nicks in the blades on the leading and trailing edges of the propellers, that could cause you to need to replace it. That can happen by just wear and tear over time, gravel and dirt getting sucked up into the blades, or perhaps you hit something. Right? Maybe you run the aircraft into a branch. So I've
never done that before.
Right. I'm sure a lot of our drone pilots have experienced it.
I'm sure I have some video of my drone going down somewhere.
I don't know what it is about flying machines and their attraction to trees.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Now, there are some adjustments that can be made on our rotors. So, for example, the tension of the blades, since we do have folding props, it can get loose over time, but that can actually be adjusted. So, and the motors, they're brushless motors, which means there's no contacting parts in the motors aside from the bearings. So, really, the only thing that could potentially happen to a motor, I know we get this question all the time. Well, motors can't last forever, can they? Well, the reality is they're not going to last forever, but they're going to last a really, 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 really long time. The only things that can really go wrong with a motor are mechanical damage, which means you hit something with the motor and you bend something or break something. Failure of the bearings potentially, but that's really rare. The bearings, modern bearings are so good and they're completely sealed from weather. I mean, they last. They're going to probably outlast you and I, frankly.
It's not saying much, but I got you.
Yeah. And, the only other thing that could happen is potentially like an overheating issue, but that would be related to a different problem, right? There would have to be something else causing that. So, our failure rate in the motors is incredibly low. I mean, and the only ones that I can think of off the top of my head were typically due to some sort of negligence or improper use. So, and we
got a 2-year, we got an exclusive 2-year warranty here at HSE as well.
Right. That's right. So, I mean, you can get a lot of use out of our aircraft, and of course, any damage to the motors would be failure of the motor would be covered.
Awesome.
So let's talk a little bit more about the spraying stuff specifically.
Yes.
We discussed how the drones stay in the air and how they're controlled, which I think a lot of people don't really understand. Hopefully, we shed some light on that. But let's talk about the spraying side. So, spraying in terms of modern spraying drones has been around for some time now. It's not that new anymore, and that's a good thing because we're beginning to see far more data being discovered and tested with drones that really helps us determine if these are actually effective, how efficient they are, how well they work, the type of application, the swath. There's so much data behind them now. That's something that we really HSE strives to really promote and educate people on, is the data.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because we just did some testing of our own not too long ago with our new Helio model we just brought on.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and we're partners with several universities. We're partnered with the USDA. We really strive to actually show how well the drones actually will operate and how they'll help. Because it's one thing to have a spraying drone. That's neat and dandy, but you have to be able to prove that it works, right? And that's what we're really set out to do.
Speaking of that, if you scroll down on the website a little bit there, you can actually see to date how much we've sprayed.
Right. And you can see here are some of our partners, USDA.
Mm-hmm.
Here's some of our customer proven results, right? So these are just some of the acres and area sprayed. And this is actually just with our Helio models in basically just the last 2 years. What's interesting is our actual area sprayed from when HSE started is way more than this. This is just the data that we're now gathering, which is helping us determine how effective our drones actually are. So it's really interesting to see this, and this is going up every day. Every day we're increasing these numbers, and this is with all of our agricultural spraying drones. So if we go to our ag and crop spraying drone page here, you can see some of our more popular models. So, these are our three main models in terms of our ag drones. We have the 122, the 116, and the 110. Those are three different sizes. They relate to 22 liter, 16 liter, and 10 liter models. And, we can look at our flagship.
I'm going to interject a little bit right there. So, folks, if you're listening and watching us, please feel free to put some comments in there. We're going to be doing this every Tuesday at noon. Simon just mentioned those three models. We're going to talk about battery management at times. We're going to talk about spray rates, nozzles. We have a whole ton of topics that we're going to bring into you on a weekly basis. So please feel free to throw some questions in there for us as we kind of go through this. So I just wanted to say that real quick, Simon, but keep on.
Absolutely. And I just want to elaborate on that a little bit. We're doing this to educate you guys. So we really want to hear your comments. I mean, what do you really want to see? Again, this is our kickoff to this new series. We'll be doing this basically every Tuesday at noon. So again, if you're not already subscribed, make sure to do so, because that's how you'll get your notification that we
start on those notifications.
And click the little bell icon. That'll send you a notification to your phone, and you can watch us whenever you want. Of course, we're going to post this live stream to our YouTube channel afterwards anyway. So if you can't make it to our live stream, you'll be able to see it later too. But again, we're here to educate you. So we want to hear your questions, your comments, your, what you want to see here. And if you, we'll probably also end up having live guests come on too. So we'll definitely love to have, experienced people. If you want to have any questions and actually come on as a guest, let us know. Shoot us an email. You can go to our website and send us an email, and we'd love to hear from you guys too.
Yep. And, we're doing over the lunch hour. So the idea is, grab your lunch, turn on the YouTube. And if you have any questions about drones or spraying drones, let us know.
That's right. Exactly.
Actually,
awesome.
We do have a question just popped into the chat while we're on it. So if I purchase one of your sprayers, I have access to all flight data, amount sprayed, etc.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. You mean your own flight data and the amount that you sprayed, or the amount that all? I'm guess that's what he means.
Yes.
But absolutely, it has the software is so advanced. We haven't even gotten into that, and we are going to have lunch and learns specifically on the software. But it will calculate all of that per drone, per acreage, per anything, and every way you'd like to break it down, you can analyze it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Great question.
Thank you for the question. I hope that answers your question. If not, let us know, and we'll elaborate if we need to.
Contact us. You can see on our website here, we have our phone number, we have our contact and everything up here. So
absolutely,
you'll be able to find us there if there are any other questions. What else do you want to talk about, John?
Well, I guess, I started with HSE back in June. And at that time, it was so new to me, the software and everything. That's what I spray use. Awesome. So, and and now with where we are, even today, even 6-7 months later, the conversation has shifted from how much can this one drone cover to how many can multiple drones cover. So, when I think about then and now, when it comes to hardware versus software, I've heard our CEO talk about this, and the hardware has gotten so good. When you look at the model we have now and that hardware, and that thing is just sturdy as a rock. But then you layer on the software, and then the fact that we're going to have some updates with multiple mission. So, then and now, I mean, I just think to maybe finish this out for the last 8 minutes, talking a little bit about the software, maybe get our appetite whet for next week, move into something else. But that's where a lot of my calls go to, because everybody's always asking me about swarming, about spot spraying, about coverage, because it used to be about helping the smaller farmers that are away, from the airports. That's where these drones come in. Now, when you can operate 22 liters and cover 60 to 70 acres in an hour with one person, now you're talking a whole different ball game. So you tell me, like, for me, it blows my mind, but I've only been in this industry for less than a year. You've been in it longer than me. So I want to hear from you, that whole difference where we are today.
Absolutely. And I think, the big thing is, although these are still drones, spraying drones are a very kind of specific type of operation, right? So like you said, the hardware is one thing, but the software is really what makes the drone and makes it operate correct, makes it operate as efficiently as possible. I'm on our how it works page here on our website. I urge you guys to take a look at it. This will be under each of our aircraft models, but it kind of explains just the very basic operations of how to use a spraying drone. So the first thing you do is you define your area. There's a lot of different ways that you can do this. You can import it from another file, or you can create it within the software. But the bottom line is you have to define the area in which you want to spray. After you define the area, we're setting all of our parameters and settings for that area. So this is going to be, for example, our altitude, height in which we're actually spraying from, our swath, the distance between each row, our rate. Typically, it's going to be in gallons per acre. So all of your kind of key variables that you need to treat this area is all set and done here. So I always mention to people, I think a lot of people that are new to this industry have the impression that you're going to be standing in the field with a remote control in your hand flying this drone, and that is not the case at all. These drones are completely autonomous. Most of the time is spent creating your mission. So once you create your mission, the operation of the drone is 100% autonomous. So once we have our area set, then we basically click to spray. Like this little image shows, we are able to arm the aircraft, we're able to start our mission, and the drone is going to do everything autonomously from takeoff to landing. Takeoff to landing, autonomous.
We can even land it in another spot and keep on moving down the row of crops if we need to.
Exactly.
Hey, we got another question. Actually, two questions. I'm going to go with this one first because I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal for us as it is with other parts in the drone industry, but remote ID and how that's going to affect us with our ag drones, especially in those rural areas when we're far away from all that good stuff. So I know that with something we've already...
I know you did some research on that.
Go ahead.
I know that you were doing a little bit of research. Do you want to help answer that?
I haven't gotten too far yet on that.
But so the bottom line is the remote ID. It's not really going to affect our operations too much because the remote ID doesn't require like an internet connection. Essentially, it won't affect rural applications. They make it very clear in the remote ID requirements that there is no cellular connection or anything required. If I'm not mistaken, and again, we're still doing our research. The remote ID is still new to us too. But if I'm not mistaken, you can actually upload your information after the flight. So it's not going to affect our operations too much. We're already working with
Hmm.
our manufacturers on including remote ID by the time that it's
Yeah.
required. That's not going to be an issue at all for us.
I don't think it's going to be an issue. I could like elaborate on a story of how they fixed something software wise within a few minutes during our first sit down. And I was like, holy cow. And it was, I wouldn't even say fixed. They just rearranged something within the software based on a suggestion I had.
Well,
So,
actually, before you get into that, John, let me just mention real quick, and I know we only have a few
mhm,
minutes left. This ties in directly as to why we chose Helio, which is our brand partner with HSC.
sure,
Um,
go for it.
and this relates with your story. The reason we chose Helio, who's our manufacturer and our partner that supplies these aircraft, is they're a U.S. based company. You know, their software development is completely done in house. It is not outsourced. So when there is a need for a change, like introducing remote ID or like John was mentioning, making a small change to software, these are things that we can do. These are things that we can make happen. We can have action items happen. So, that's one of the main reasons. We're going to get into a lot more in our future lunch and learns, explaining why we choose the companies that we work with.
Hmm.
But I just wanted to mention that real quick. Sorry to cut
Yeah.
you off there. You can
No, I'm not even going to get into that story right now because we've got a few questions.
surely, yeah. Let's
I've
answer these
and I could
questions.
tell the story another time. It sticks in my mind. I won't forget it. So, spot spraying. I'm going to go back to a question from Mark Black. So, is it best done manually, or do you have to walk the field to set waypoints to make it automated? I can answer that, or you can, Simon. I think we both got that one down.
Sure. Yeah. I can go ahead and answer that. So
Go for
spot
it.
spraying, and this goes along with the regular area spraying too. There's a lot of different options to how you can determine the points.
Hmm.
Essentially, you can use map data. You can also use a GPS, what we call a tracker GPS, and actually go into your field and walk it. There's
Yeah.
other options too. You could import external files, so you have a lot of options in terms of
Yeah.
bringing in data into the software.
I mean, you can even go as far as clicking with your mouse because again, our software is operated on a laptop, so you could actually click the spots. So spot spraying, we don't have a video of it yet on the YouTube. It's something that we plan on doing.
It'll be coming soon.
Just know though that is it's pretty easy to do. And when you buy your drone, you're going to get some training with Simon, one-on-one virtual training, and he will go through all of that. So mission planning as well as spot spraying, and at some point, multiple mission planning as well, which isn't too far into the future. So hopefully that answers that question, Mark. Thank you for that question. And then we also have a question from Delbert.
Oh, hey,
Um,
Delbert. How's it
yeah, what's
going?
up, Delbert? How
We
you
know
doing?
Delbert.
Of course, we know Delbert. Um, so Delbert's question is about importing data from a MicaSense multispectral camera to the sprayer drone for spot spraying. So do you want to talk on that a little bit,
Sure, I can
Simon?
elaborate on that. So the multispectral camera, essentially, for people that don't know, the multispectral camera allows for imaging that can essentially determine trouble spots in an area before it spreads. Um, Currently, Delbert, the way that we would have to do that is you do need a software to be able to interpret the imaging from the multispectral camera. There's a lot of options out there that you could name. I mean, Pic4D, there's a ton of options for multispectral